Well, it's been a week since I brought you a Moff Gideon deck profile. That time I pretty much took the starter deck and added a few cards that kind of went along with what the starter was trying to do to see what I could do with the deck using the cards I had at my disposal. After that point in time, we had a pre-release and a release event. So now I have more cards, and I'm showing you what I'm at a week later. So for those of you that don't know what Moff Gideon does, it's pretty straightforward. You could, as an action, rest him to attack with a unit costs 3 or less, and if it's attacking another unit, it gets +1 attack. Once you get the 5 resources, you're able to deploy him, and he himself has Overwhelm. He's a 3/6, and he has the ability that all units would cost 3 or less when attacking another unit gets +1/+0 and Overwhelm. This allows you to have some really favorable combat throughout the course of the game, which is what we're trying to take advantage of. I went away from the Vigilance and went towards Aggression. I'm using a simple 30 health base, only because people are trying to do really dumb stuff right now, so spotting them 5 life is not exactly the way to go. With that in mind, we were having a discussion at our locals, and a lot of people are having issues with, hey, we got all these influx of good new cards and we have established decks. How are we going to fit all these good cards into all these decks? And what my conclusion simply is that you just got to pick a lane and go for it, right? If the lane that you pick doesn't work out, then you got to choose another lane. But you really don't have the deck space to fit every single card and every single engine you want. So just pick away, go with it. With that being said, what do we gain from going with Aggression? Well, as you remember from the last deck profile, we went with a heavy trooper package. Well, you get a much better trooper package going with Aggression. And it starts off with Death Star Stormtrooper, which is a 1-drop 3/1. It works really well with Moff Gideon's ability, making this card able to trade up into most 3 or even 4 cost cards. This means that now you have favorable energy advantages on your opponent that they don't normally have to deal with. Death Star is such a good 1-drop that a lot of times people try to lane dodge you, so that is also beneficial. We still have Incinerator Trooper, which is becoming one of my favorite drops in the game, especially if you get to go first, because of its ability to act. It has first strike. So it deals its combat damage on offense first. This means that if it kills the unit, it doesn't get dealt damage back. So if you're going against someone, you start with this, and they go with, let's say, a Sabine Wren or whatever the 3/3 is. You get to just activate Moff Gideon, clear it off, and then you don't have to worry about the card. And it itself never dies. And of course, as you beef it up over the course of the game with all the enhancements we have, it makes it even more gross. We also gain First Legion Stormtrooper. This guy right here gets +2/+0 and Overwhelm when attacking a damage unit. So that also means that we use it with Moff Gideon. It becomes a 5, which allows it to trade into was 4, 5, and even some 6 drops, which is what you're really trying to do. You're trying to take your 2 energy play and run it into their larger energy play and create uneven exchanges. We have Seasoned Stormtrooper. This gives us a little bit of a late game or mid to late game. Once you get to 6 resources, this guy becomes a 4/3. And then, of course, with Moff Gideon, a 5/3. We still have Phase 3 Dark Trooper, the Sentinel choice that could possibly get bigger by using them for offense and then having them be bigger for defense. We have Snow Trooper Lieutenant, which allows us to attack with all these things as a part of them being played. And then if it's Imperial, it gets +2 attack. So you can attack with any unit, but if it's Imperial, it gets +2 attack. which is why I kind of mentioned these with it. Now, another thing we gain is additional troopers, as I mentioned before. In this new set, we gained the Mandalorian troopers. So we have Death Watch Loyalists, which is a 3/3 with grit and has built-in overwhelm. Again, as this thing gets larger, Moff Gideon's ability pumping it becomes even more relevant and even more dangerous for your opponent. We also have 2 copies of Clan Challengers. This guy right here basically swings for 6. It has overwhelm when it is upgraded, which we have ways of upgrading it. And as such is a very strong card for our late game. But I still wanted an actual finisher. So my actual finisher became the boy Pre Vizsla. Now there's a couple ways you could do this. So one is you could have something that like closes out the game extremely fast, which is what Pre Vizsla does. Because some people could stretch out a game, like they could heal, they could do a bunch of stuff, especially nowadays with like decks like Ray and whatnot that could just heal a ton of life at once. You need to be able to deal a ton of damage at once. Pre Vizsla comes down, he steals an upgrade. Usually you're stealing someone's shield or somebody's experience token. And then on the following turn, he's going to swing and steal another upgrade. If you're not aware, this meta is going to be full of upgrades, kind of being all over the place. So you're going to be able to easily take advantage of his ability. Then we have our generic troopers, right? Sorry, it's kind of all over the place. It's just kind of hard to do it. We got Benthic 2 tubes. Benthic was a favorite from set 1 for me, even though he was a little bit difficult to play. But now we have multiple 1-drops that work really well with him. He's also a trooper. And besides himself and Death Star Stormtrooper, we also had Govian Antagonizer. It's Govian Antagonizer, which is a 2/3 Saboteur. It does have a bounty that says if you defeat it, your opponent gets a draw card. But you're not really worried about that too much because they're probably drawing the card, doesn't affect you too terribly high. But this guy is a trooper, a great 1-turn play, and he's better than the other option, which was Cantina Braggart. Cantina Braggart was a 0/3 with Raid 2, which meant it swung for the same amount. But the problem was Cantina Braggart did not stop people from swinging at it. And this guy can possibly do that. He's also type trooper, which is important because we gain a lot of trooper support. We are still on General Tage, which gives 1 experience token to up to 3 troopers. He's still a cool card in his deck once you get your board out there. And he doesn't care what size the trooper is, so he could also buff up Clan Challengers as well as Pre Vizsla. And then we have access to Precision Fire, which is an amazing card. It sort of acts like this, but it buffs troopers. So it gives the trooper +2 on attack. The other thing is that it gives the trooper Saboteur. On top of just regular upgrades, you're going to see a lot of shields everywhere. So the ability to pop shields or even to get around Sentinel is going to be important for a deck like this. Especially like if you're trying to close out a game with Pre Vizsla and they put out a Sentinel, you can just activate this, make them to like a 12 or 14 attacker, and just clear them and win the game. 2 copies of the Darksaber. So this is mainly to put on Moff Gideon himself. And then once you do that, you can start pumping up your Mandalorians you have, such as Death Watch Loyalists, or Clan Challengers, or Pre Vizsla, or this next card, which is here for utility, Disabling Fang Fighter, which is a set 1 card that is also randomly a Mandalorian. So with that in mind, we have decent targets for it. The other reason why this card is good is because of Pre Vizsla. So if you happen to have this on Moff Gideon and Pre Vizsla is out there, you can swing with Moff Gideon, give a +1 counter to Pre Vizsla, as well as every other Mandalorian you have out there. And then you can swing with Pre Vizsla, pay for it, and move the Darksaber over to him, which means you usually swing him for somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 to 16 damage on that one swing that he gets. And that's usually enough, again, to close out a game. Now, your other choice, if you didn't want to go with Pre-Vizsla, if you were worried about more board control, you could go with Darth Vader. But I personally do not own more than one copy, so Pre-Vizsla it is. And then lastly, we have our generic support cards or use cards. We have TIE LM Fighter, which is a decent action filler. You know, if you played something or you just have a resource left, you can play it out there and just make the board a little wider than your opponent want to deal with. He's also not as bad as it used to be because you could play this on turn one. Your opponent goes space, like with a Green Squadron A-Wing. And with Moff Gideon's effect, you're going to be able to trade into that Green Squadron A-Wing when before you really couldn't. Then we have Outland TIE Fighter or TIE Vanguard, which allows us to put experience marker on a 3LS, which is most of the deck outside of these guys right here. And then a card I think has a lot of potential in this current meta, but I could be wrong. Punishing One. So you play this for 3, it comes down, it's a 3/4, so it's a little bit difficult to just immediately wipe off the board. But unlike other 3-draw plays, you could actually untap this guy on your turn because of just how much experience and shields and all that stuff is going around right now. So you're going to be able to like kill off something, restand it, and then swing on the same turn that you play it. And then we have 3 copies of Open Fire. Open Fire might actually change out to the other card whose name escapes me, that has the ability to deal 3 damage, but 6 if you capture the unit. It all depends on how popular capture becomes. So as I play through my tournaments, I'll make a determination about whether or not that stays the main card in the deck. But yeah, that's basically it. That is where we at 1 week later. I hope to catch you again next time. And this is VG Time signing out.